Hi folks, it's Coach Kelvin here from the We Run Virtual Run Club and We Run Coach for Leeds and surrounding areas as well as online coaching. I'm going to do a couple or maybe even three videos on reviewing your training and also kind of monitoring progression and monitoring your fitness. And one of the first things that I like to start with, and it's an amazing time of year for it, is just to review my last 12 months of training. So I do a screenshot of my time in heart rate zones. I do look at other things as well, but in this video I'm going to focus on time in heart rate zones. I do look at distance, long run distance, elevation, and also time in speed zones. But we're going to look at an image, and I've written in kind of like things that happened in that time. And really, what I'm going to try to do this year is look to see if I can make any changes, because it's these changes on a bigger picture that's going to make me, hopefully, a better runner. You know, rather than thinking like short training blocks, I'm actually thinking, what can I change over a 12-month period? So what did I do? Or rather, what am I going to do this year that I didn't do last year? So let's take a look at this screenshot and I'll explain in a bit more detail. So here we have time in heart rate zones. It's on a 5-zone model. So zone 1 is the lighter colour, zone 2, zone 3, and zone 4. There wasn't any zone 5 work in this 12-month period. And I'm just going to sort of do a little review on what actually happened, and then I'm going to just kind of speak a little bit about what I'm going to change this year. So at the start of the season, I was in the Alps for 4 weeks, mainly snowshoeing and snowboarding. The load was quite low, but I actually put my heel down a hole snowshoeing and damaged rather my Achilles. So I had to just take things a little bit steady for a few weeks. Once I got back into the UK, I did some specific training here, and here. So 4 specific weekends in either North Wales or the Lake District in preparation for UTS 50k, which is a 55k ultra with 3,300 meters of elevation. Now, interestingly, the idea on this race was actually to expose weaknesses. So the idea was to go way too hard. That combined with it being a ridiculously hot day meant quite a lot of time in zone 4, something that you wouldn't normally see on a 55k, but that was due to the temperature more than anything. But because I pushed harder to expose weaknesses, it meant the second half of the race was relatively slow for me. So it actually meant quite a sort of short recovery of a couple of weeks. Then I did a 3-day lakes mission with my wife Becky. So that was carrying our own gear for 3 days of running and walking in the hills. Then some sort of general local stuff. And that's 2 days in the lakes, but not sort of a 2-day mission. It was more sort of 2 individual days, with a little bit of speed in there as well. Then into the sort of Alps with some elevation for sort of 3 weeks. Some of that is kind of more sort of walky, runny type stuff, some hut-to-hut stuff. At some point around here, I decided to do the Wild Struble 25k, so no specific training for that really. I did put a specific week of speed in here with quite low volume, and then a little sort of sharpening week before the event itself. I got 7th in my age cat in quite a big race, so I was really pleased with that off the back of the training that I'd done. And then, so this is really interesting that I decided to do this race again this year, so 2024. And training for that race literally started like the week after it. So in terms of decided to do it and like, okay, let's kind of get on this couple of weeks of recovery. And then, I'm not hanging everything on one race. I'll do all sorts of other fun things, but that is my A race for this year. Then I went into an aerobic refresh where we can see there's actually quite a lot of zone 2 in there, like increasing zone 2 over those 3 weeks. So if we were to look at distance there, that would actually increase quite considerably because the pace was faster at a higher heart rate. And then decrease the volume there to add some strength work in. So deadlifts, squats, step ups, and calf raises is what I've been doing. So that's why the volume's relatively low leading up to where we are now. So things that I'm going to change this year. The first one is I've made the decision not to go out snowboarding this year. So is to continue the strength work and then start to grow a bit of volume before I go into a sort of 5 to 10k specific phase, just to get some of that sort of for me, that's sort of top end speed, and it's something that I quite often miss. And then I'm going to do some kind of mountain days, but I'm not going to do an ultra this year, I don't think. I might do some other sort of longer distance challenges, but I've got no plans to do a spring ultra. So the idea is to just build volume and speed until somewhere around sort of early July, where I then go back out to the Alps, and then I'll look at a specific phase, but targeted at a 25k race. Whereas this year it wasn't targeted at that race, it was just generally having fun. And then Becky talked me into doing the Weilstrubel that she did last year, and at the last minute I decided to do that. So the main changes I'm going to make is, so from this sort of aerobic refresh and strength phase here, the volume is going to come in a little bit higher, and I'm going to start to grow that a little bit quicker. I averaged 30 miles a week last year for the whole 12 months. I want to get that up to more like sort of 35, maybe to 38 this year. Obviously, continuing that strength phase, instead of putting a specific 50k phase in, I'm going to get some speed in my legs with a little bit of a sort of 5 to 10k, so VO2 max phase, before going into the Alps, where I do the more specific work and acclimatization. And this time I'm actually going to do maybe a 10-day taper into Weilstrubel, and my A goal is to shoot for an age cap podium, which will be like super challenging, really quite unlikely, but you never know. So I hope all that made some sort of sense, and if you have any questions, please just pop them in the comments below. And for now, happy running!